The sun was shining bright over the city, but in a quiet, forgotten part of town, a small boy walked along the uneven cobblestone street. His shoes were old and dusty, the soles worn thin from long walks, yet he carried himself with a calmness that made him seem older than his age. In his hands he held a small, chipped wooden instrument, the strings looking like they had been played countless times. This little boy loved music more than anything else, and even when life was harsh, the melodies he created gave him hope. On this day, the boy wandered near a grand estate at the edge of the city. High walls and shiny gates separated this place from the ordinary streets, making it seem like a different world entirely. He had never been inside, but he often stopped nearby to watch the gardens, the fountains, and the people who seemed to float effortlessly through life, dressed in fine clothes and laughing without a care. He knew they were rich, but he didn't mind. He only wanted to play his music where someone might hear it and appreciate it. The millionaire who owned the estate was standing in his courtyard, talking to a few guests. He was a man used to attention and admiration, and he rarely found anything that truly surprised him. That was until he noticed the small boy at the edge of the gate. The boy's clothes were ragged, his hair messy, but there was something about his quiet presence that caught the millionaire's eye. It wasn't anger or fear. There was a kind of calm determination in him. Curious, the millionaire walked closer, his expensive shoes clicking against the stone path. The boy looked up and met his gaze without flinching. There was no begging in his eyes, no fake smile, just a simple, honest stare. The millionaire smiled, not cruelly, but with a teasing edge. "Do you play?" he asked, tilting his head. The boy nodded, gripping his instrument a little tighter. "Play for me," the millionaire said, his voice light but carrying a challenge. "If you impress me, maybe I'll adopt you." The words were meant to be teasing, almost mocking, and the small group of guests who had followed the millionaire laughed quietly. They didn't know this boy, and in their eyes, he seemed like just another poor child trying to survive. The boy didn't answer right away. He set his instrument on his lap and looked down at the strings, taking a deep breath. There was a moment of silence, and everyone waited, curious to see if he would fail. But failure was not in his mind. He had practiced countless hours in empty rooms and quiet corners, pouring his heart into each note. Today he was ready, even if he didn't know how much these strangers would care. He began to play softly, almost timidly at first. The sound was simple, a few notes floating through the air, and the guests shifted uncomfortably, unsure if this was meant to be entertainment or just the clumsy attempt of a child. The millionaire raised an eyebrow, smirking, certain that his challenge would end in disappointment. He expected laughter, not awe. But slowly the music changed. Each note became more confident, more deliberate. The boy's fingers moved with a surprising grace, striking the strings with precision. The melody started to carry emotion, a mixture of sadness, hope, and beauty that seemed too deep for someone so young. People stopped talking, and even the birds in the nearby garden seemed to pause, as if listening. The millionaire leaned forward slightly, curious now, his smirk fading. He had not expected this. The boy's music had something magical about it, something that made time feel slower. Each note told a story of struggle and dreams, of longing and courage. The boy's eyes were closed now, and he played not for the approval of the rich man, but for himself, for the joy that music brought him. It was honest, pure, and powerful. Guests who had been laughing moments ago were now silent, captivated by the unexpected talent of this small boy. Some wiped their eyes, feeling emotions they hadn't thought they would feel today. The millionaire, a man who had seen the finest performances money could buy, found himself holding his breath. He realized that this boy, this simple child from the streets, had something that many adults, many trained musicians, did not heart. As the final note lingered in the air, there was a moment of stillness. No one moved, no one spoke. The music had left an invisible mark on everyone present. The boy opened his eyes slowly and looked up at the millionaire. There was no fear, no expectation, just quiet confidence. He had played from his soul and it showed. The millionaire smiled, but this time it was different. It wasn't teasing. It was genuine, a smile of respect. He had underestimated this child as had everyone else. The boy had turned a moment of mockery into a moment of awe. He had taken what was meant to belittle him and transformed it into something unforgettable. The guests looked at each other, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others nodding slowly. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a reminder that talent and spirit are not defined by wealth, appearance, or circumstance. The boy had done what many could not. He had touched hearts with nothing but his music. The millionaire extended a hand, not to mock, but to acknowledge. "You have something very special," he said. "Today, you've shown me more than I expected." The boy nodded, a small smile forming on his lips. He didn't need to say anything else. The music had spoken for him. People slowly began to clap, softly at first, then louder, filling the courtyard with applause. The boy bowed slightly, humble but proud. He had faced ridicule, he had faced doubt, and he had emerged shining. The millionaire watched, realizing that perhaps he had learned more from this encounter than the boy ever would from him. That day marked a beginning, not just for the boy, but for everyone who saw him play. It was a story that would be told and retold, of how a small boy, with worn shoes and a simple instrument, could silence the laughter of the world and leave everyone speechless with the power of his music. It was a reminder that true talent cannot be measured by appearances or status, and that sometimes the most remarkable stories come from the most unexpected places. The courtyard was still buzzing from the boy's music, but the atmosphere had changed. The laughter that had once filled the air was replaced by whispers and quiet astonishment. Guests and staff alike looked at the boy in a way they never had before. Some could hardly believe what they had just witnessed. Others were caught off guard by the emotion stirred inside them by the simple yet powerful melody. The millionaire, standing a few steps away, watched carefully, trying to read the expressions of those around him. For the boy, the sudden attention was both new and uncomfortable. He had grown up learning to play in solitude, in corners where no one could judge him, where mistakes would not be noticed. Being watched so closely made him nervous, but he refused to let it show. He adjusted his hands on the instrument, took a small breath, and prepared to continue. He knew this was his moment, a moment where he could turn curiosity and mockery into respect. Some of the guests, especially those who had been laughing earlier, whispered to each other. "Who knew a child could play like that?" one said softly. Another nodded, unable to tear their eyes away. Even the staff, who had worked in the estate for years and seen many performers come and go, found themselves unexpectedly moved. The boy's performance had reminded them of something they had almost forgotten: the power of simplicity and genuine talent. The millionaire, meanwhile, felt a complex mixture of surprise, pride, and guilt. He realized that his teasing words had been harsh, but the boy had not faltered. In fact, he had transformed a potentially humiliating moment into a display of courage and skill. The millionaire's mind raced, thinking about the many times he had seen children discouraged or underestimated simply because of their appearance or circumstances. This boy was different. He had a strength and depth that could not be measured by money or status. A few of the guests dared to approach the boy, cautiously offering compliments. "That was incredible," one whispered. The boy nodded politely, shy but appreciative. He had never played for such an audience before, and the compliments felt strange but encouraging. He kept his focus on the instrument, knowing that actions and music spoke louder than words. As the boy prepared to play another piece, someone in the crowd suggested, half-jokingly, "Can you play something harder?" The boy's eyes lit up slightly, a spark of challenge in them. Without a word, he began to play again. This time, the melody was more complex, filled with intricate movements and rhythms that demanded attention. The crowd leaned in, mesmerized. Each note seemed to tell a story, not just of music but of life, struggle, and hope. The boy's hands moved quickly but gracefully, a dance of skill and emotion that left everyone watching in silent awe. The millionaire's guests, some who had been skeptical or even judgmental moments ago, found themselves completely captivated. They were no longer thinking about wealth, status, or appearances. All that mattered was the boy and the music that seemed to flow effortlessly from his soul. Even those who rarely paid attention to art or music felt something stir inside them, a sense of admiration and wonder that was difficult to describe. For the boy, playing for such an audience was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. Each note carried more than just melody. It carried his experiences, his dreams, and his determination. He had faced ridicule in his life before, but this time it felt different. This time, he was not just playing for himself. He was showing the world that talent and heart cannot be hidden by circumstance. Every chord, every note was a statement of who he was. Some of the children who had been nearby watching silently were inspired. They looked at him with wide eyes, realizing that age and background did not define what one could achieve. They whispered among themselves, amazed that someone so young could command such skill and emotion. The boy's music had become more than a performance. It had become a lesson, a reminder that belief in oneself and perseverance could lead to incredible moments. Meanwhile, the millionaire was reflecting deeply. He had always believed that money could give access to the best of everything, but now he realized that talent, courage, and heart could not be bought. He had been ready to mock the boy, expecting a show of weakness, but instead, he witnessed something extraordinary. The boy had turned the tables, making everyone else pause and reconsider their own assumptions. As the final notes of the second piece echoed through the courtyard, the atmosphere shifted completely. Where there had been skepticism and ridicule, there was now admiration and respect. Guests clapped, softly at first, then more enthusiastically, as they realized the depth of what they had witnessed. The boy bowed slightly, modest yet proud, knowing that he had shared a part of himself that words could never capture. The millionaire stepped forward, this time without a smirk. He looked at the boy and said, "You have more courage and talent than most adults I know. Today, you've shown me something I will not forget." The boy nodded, acknowledging the words, though he didn't need to respond. His music had already spoken louder than anything else could. People began to murmur among themselves, discussing the unexpected performance. Some compared it to grand concerts they had attended. Others spoke about the emotional depth of the music. The boy, standing quietly with his instrument, listened but did not become overwhelmed. He had learned early in life to stay grounded, no matter the attention or applause. Throughout the estate, the story of the boy's talent began to spread quickly. The staff who had witnessed it firsthand told each other, while guests who had been impressed shared the tale with others. It was remarkable how quickly a moment of genuine talent could ripple through an environment where status and wealth usually dominated conversation. The boy himself felt a mix of emotions. There was pride, yes, but also relief. He had faced ridicule and expectations, and he had surpassed them. The attention and praise, though new and slightly intimidating, were reminders that his dedication and love for music could truly make a difference in people's hearts. He realized that this moment could be the start of something bigger, that his talent might open doors he had never imagined. The millionaire, observing the boy and the reactions of those around him, began to think differently about life. He had wealth, power, and influence, yet he felt that he had just experienced something far more valuable. The boy's performance had reminded him that true richness came not from money, but from seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary, from witnessing raw talent and pure emotion that could move hearts. As the crowd slowly dispersed, the boy remained for a moment, taking in the experience. He had transformed ridicule into admiration, skepticism into awe, and loneliness into a moment of connection. The memory of this day would stay with him, a reminder of what could happen when one plays from the heart and believes in oneself. The millionaire, standing near the gate, watched as the boy walked away, feeling an unexpected sense of respect and inspiration. He knew he had underestimated this child, as had everyone else. Yet the boy had turned the moment into something unforgettable. It was a lesson for the millionaire, for the guests, and for anyone who believed that appearances or status defined value. The boy's music had done more than entertain. It had changed perspectives, sparked admiration, and left a lasting impression that no one would forget. After the applause had faded and the guests moved on, the boy stayed a little longer in the courtyard. He ran his fingers gently over the strings of his instrument, feeling the vibrations and remembering the look of surprise and admiration on everyone's faces. He had played from the heart, and the response had been beyond anything he could have imagined. Yet, deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. He wanted to show that his music could do more than entertain. It could touch hearts and inspire people. The millionaire walked slowly towards the boy, his expression thoughtful. He had seen many talented performers, but none had struck him like this boy had. There was a depth in his music, a sincerity that could not be learned from lessons or bought with money. The millionaire knelt down slightly, to be closer to the boy's level, and spoke quietly. Your music is not just skill. It's emotion, courage, and life itself. I have never seen anything like this from someone so young. The boy looked up briefly, then back at the instrument, his fingers lightly brushing the strings. He didn't speak much because words felt small compared to the melodies he could create. The millionaire understood this. He had seen enough to know that the boy's silence was not shyness. It was focus, a sign of someone who took his craft seriously and played with purpose. Word began to spread among the staff and workers of the estate. Many had witnessed the performance, and now stories of the boy's talent were reaching other corners of the city. Some visitors who had not been present earlier asked to see him play, curious to witness what had amazed everyone. The boy, however, remained humble and quiet. He was not performing for fame or recognition. He was performing because music was a part of him, a way to express everything he felt inside. That evening, the millionaire invited the boy to sit in the main hall. It was a grand room with high ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and polished floors. The boy's eyes widened slightly at the sight, not out of greed or desire, but simply because he had never seen such luxury. Yet, he did not let it distract him. He still had his instrument with him, and it was the center of his attention. The millionaire gestured for him to play again. This time, it was more than a test. It was a chance for the boy to explore his talent in a new space, with different acoustics and a new audience, even if it was just the millionaire watching. The boy closed his eyes and began to play, letting the music fill the entire hall. Each note echoed beautifully, bouncing off the walls and ceiling, creating a rich tapestry of sound that seemed to envelop the room. As he played, the millionaire could see the way the boy's body moved with the music. It was not just the hands on the instrument. It was the sway of his shoulders, the subtle movements of his head, the concentration in his expression. Everything about him said that he lived and breathed music. The millionaire realized that he had been wrong to think of the boy as merely a child to mock. He was a true artist, one whose talent demanded respect. Outside, neighbors and people passing by began to pause when they heard the music carrying through the gates. Some came closer, curious to see who could create such beautiful sounds. They watched quietly, understanding that this was something special. The boy's music had the power to stop people in their tracks, even strangers who had no connection to him. It was proof that real talent speaks for itself, beyond words or introductions. The boy finished his piece, and there was a brief moment of silence. The sound lingered in the room, leaving a feeling of awe and wonder. The millionaire stood and clapped, more sincerely than he ever had for anyone. "You are extraordinary," he said. "This talent, it cannot be ignored." The boy nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest. He had never expected such praise, but he also knew that the music itself was its own reward. He didn't need constant validation. He needed understanding and the chance to play. And now, perhaps, doors were opening that had been closed to him before. Over the next few days, the boy returned to the estate multiple times. The millionaire, impressed by his dedication, offered him lessons and access to instruments and books that the boy had never seen. For the boy, this was not about luxury. It was about learning, improving, and exploring music in ways he could not have imagined. The millionaire watched quietly, occasionally offering guidance but mostly giving him space to grow. It was a rare kind of mentorship, one built on respect rather than expectation. Meanwhile, stories about the boy began to spread through the city. Local newspapers and neighbors shared the tale of the young musician who had turned ridicule into admiration. Children who had once been timid about their own talents felt inspired. Adults who had dismissed young people's potential started to reconsider their own assumptions. The boy's influence, though unintended, began to grow. In the courtyard where it had all begun, people still talked about the day the boy played for the Millionaire. Staff and workers recalled every detail, from the trembling first notes to the confident, flowing melody that had left everyone speechless. They told new visitors about how someone so small could hold such a big presence. Each retelling emphasized courage, perseverance, and the unexpected power of talent. For the boy, the focus remained on the music. He continued to practice, exploring new pieces, creating his own compositions, and experimenting with different sounds. Each day, he became more confident, more expressive. The applause and recognition were nice, but they were not his motivation. The real reward was in the creation itself, the feeling of connecting with something larger than himself. The Millionaire, too, learned something important. He had wealth, influence, and power, but he realized that he had been missing the simple, genuine moments in life. Watching the boy play reminded him that talent and heart cannot be bought, that inspiration often comes from unexpected places, and that humility and respect are as valuable as any riches. One afternoon, as the boy played a particularly intricate piece, the Millionaire sat quietly nearby, listening intently. He noticed how the boy's eyes would close at times, how he would sway slightly with the music, and how his fingers moved almost effortlessly over the strings. It was a performance that transcended skill. It was an expression of life itself, of dreams and experiences distilled into sound. Neighbors passing by paused, some lingering longer than usual, drawn by the beauty of the music. Even those who had been skeptical before could not deny the impact of what they heard. The boy had created something that transcended social status, money, and appearances. He had captured attention and hearts with his dedication and soul. By the end of the day, the boy packed his instrument carefully, looking up at the Millionaire. There was an unspoken understanding between them. This was not just about music. It was about potential, growth, and respect. The boy had proved that talent and heart could overcome ridicule and doubt. The Millionaire had learned that recognition and guidance could nurture greatness in ways he had never imagined. As the sun set over the estate, casting golden light across the gardens and fountains, the boy walked home slowly, the weight of the day's experiences settling in. He felt a quiet pride, not boastful but deep and meaningful. He had faced judgment, uncertainty, and challenge, and had emerged not only unbroken but admired. It was a lesson he would carry for the rest of his life. That courage, talent, and authenticity can move mountains, change hearts, and leave a lasting impact on the world around you. The next morning, the boy woke up early, feeling the excitement of a new day. His small room, though simple and modest, felt warmer than usual. The events of the previous day replayed in his mind. The surprise, the applause, the attention, and most importantly, the recognition of his talent. He had faced skepticism and ridicule, and yet his music had spoken for him. That thought brought a quiet smile to his face. He picked up his instrument carefully, examining it as if it were a treasure. Though it was worn and chipped, it had carried him through countless hours of practice and emotion. Every string, every mark on its surface told a story, and now it had helped him create something unforgettable. Today, he was determined to play again, not for fame, but to continue expressing the emotions that music allowed him to share. At the estate, the Millionaire was already preparing for the day. He had called some of his closest friends and associates to witness the boy's performance again. Unlike yesterday, this was not intended to mock or challenge him. It was an opportunity to see more of the boy's talent and to give him encouragement. He wanted to nurture this gift, knowing that true talent was rare and precious. The boy arrived at the estate, instrument in hand. He noticed the people gathered and felt a small twinge of nervousness. He had performed for strangers before, but there was something different about today. The eyes watching him were not filled with ridicule. They were curious and expectant. That made him more aware of the power his music had to affect others. He took a deep breath and began to play. The first notes were gentle, almost hesitant, But as he continued, his confidence grew. Each melody flowed smoothly into the next, and the complexity of the music was apparent. The audience listened in silence, completely absorbed. They could see the concentration on his face, the precision of his fingers, and the emotion he poured into each chord. The millionaire watched with quiet admiration. He had seen many skilled performers, but few could convey feeling with such clarity. The boy's music was not just technically proficient. It was alive. It carried meaning, emotion, and a sense of story that captivated everyone present. The guests, too, were moved. Some leaned forward, mesmerized, while others closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. A few minutes into the performance, the boy switched to a faster, more dynamic piece. His fingers moved quickly across the instrument, yet each note was precise and intentional. The melody built, rising and falling like waves, creating a rhythm that made the heart beat faster. Even those who had not considered themselves lovers of music were caught in its spell. The power of the performance was undeniable. Outside, passers-by could hear the music drifting through the gates. Some stopped to listen, drawn in by the beauty of the sound. Children paused their games, and adults paused their conversations. For a moment, the music created a bridge between people from different walks of life, reminding everyone of a simple truth, that art has the power to unite and inspire. As the boy continued, he felt a sense of freedom. The music was no longer just a performance. It was an expression of himself. He had faced doubt, fear, and mockery, yet he played with a courage that surprised even him. Every note was a declaration of his resilience, his dedication, and his love for the art form. He realized that the audience, though impressive and wealthy, mattered less than the music itself. What mattered was the connection, the emotions, and the story he was telling. The millionaire noticed a change in the atmosphere. The audience, who had been simply watching, now seemed transported. Their expressions shifted from curiosity to wonder. Some had tears in their eyes, moved by the depth of feeling conveyed in the boy's performance. He had transformed a simple room into a place of magic, proving that talent and passion could surpass wealth, status, or social barriers. When the final notes echoed through the hall, the silence that followed was profound. No one moved immediately. They sat in awe, digesting what they had just heard. Then slowly applause began, started quietly, then grew louder and stronger. The boy bowed modestly, acknowledging the appreciation, but he did not let it inflate his pride. He knew that this was only one step in his journey, and that the music itself was more important than recognition. After the performance, the millionaire approached him. "You have a gift," he said quietly. "A gift that should not be hidden. You have shown courage, creativity, and heart. I am honored to witness your talent." The boy nodded, feeling warmth from the words. This was the kind of recognition that mattered, not just applause but understanding and respect. In the following days, the boy was given more opportunities to practice in the estate, exploring new pieces and experimenting with different styles. The millionaire provided him with books, instruments, and guidance, allowing him to grow without pressure. The boy welcomed these chances, focusing on learning and expressing himself through music. Each day, he became more confident, more skilled, and more aware of the impact his music could have on others. Meanwhile, the story of the boy's talent began to spread beyond the estate. Neighbors, children, and adults alike spoke of the young musician who could silence a room with his melodies. Local storytellers shared the tale, emphasizing the courage it took to face ridicule and still play from the heart. The boy's influence began to grow, inspiring others to pursue their own passions and dreams, no matter the obstacles. The millionaire, observing all this, reflected on his own life. He had wealth and status, yet he realized that witnessing the boy's talent had taught him a lesson he could not have bought. Humility, respect, and encouragement were invaluable. He had underestimated the power of genuine talent and the courage of youth. Now he felt a desire to support and nurture the boy, not for recognition, but for the joy of seeing talent flourish. One afternoon, as the boy practiced a particularly challenging piece, The millionaire watched silently. The boy's fingers moved effortlessly, the melody flowing naturally from him. He played not to impress, but to express, to communicate something deeper than words could capture. The millionaire realized that this was the true essence of artistry, a combination of skill, emotion, and authenticity. Visitors to the estate were allowed to listen, and each one left inspired. They spoke quietly among themselves, amazed at the boy's ability to transform emotion into sound. It became clear that his talent was not limited to technical skill. It was the honesty, passion, and soul behind the music that made it extraordinary. People began to talk about the boy not just as a child prodigy, but as a young artist with something to say about life itself. The boy, for his part, remained grounded. He practiced diligently, explored new music, and continued to share his talent with those willing to listen. He had learned that recognition and applause were fleeting, but the connection created through music was lasting. He wanted to inspire, to touch hearts, and to remind others that courage and dedication could overcome judgment and doubt. As the sun set over the estate, casting a golden glow across the courtyard and halls, the boy packed his instrument and looked back one last time for the day. He had grown in skill, confidence, and understanding, but more importantly, he had seen the power of music to change hearts and minds. The millionaire, watching from the hall, knew that this was just the beginning of a remarkable journey. Together, they had created a space where talent, courage, and heart could shine, proving that greatness often comes from the most unexpected places. The day ended with a quiet sense of fulfillment. The boy had once again faced an audience, shared his gift, and inspired those around him. The millionaire had learned lessons of humility, respect, and the power of encouragement. Both understood that what had begun as a simple encounter could grow into something extraordinary. The boy's music had not only captivated the wealthy and influential, but it had also touched the hearts of anyone willing to listen, leaving an impression that would last far beyond a single performance. The days passed quickly, and the boy continued to visit the estate regularly. Each time, he brought new energy and creativity, surprising everyone with his evolving skill. What had begun as a single performance had grown into something larger, a routine of learning, practice, and sharing music that inspired all who were present. The millionaire, who had once only expected amusement, now felt a deep respect and admiration for the boy. He watched quietly, letting the young musician guide the experience, understanding that the boy's art should flourish naturally. One afternoon, the boy arrived to find a small gathering of children in the courtyard. They had heard stories of his talent and were eager to see him play. Some were shy, standing behind the gate, unsure if they could approach. Others were curious, leaning forward, eyes wide with anticipation. The boy smiled gently at them, not needing words to invite them closer. Music had a way of connecting people without speaking, and he intended to let it speak today. He began to play softly, a melody that flowed like a gentle stream. The children listened, captivated, and soon even the adults nearby stopped to hear. The music was calm, soothing, yet rich with feeling. It told a story that no one needed to understand fully to feel. The boy's fingers moved with skill and ease, each note deliberate and meaningful. He had learned that music could bridge gaps between people, between ages, and between worlds of wealth and simplicity. As the melody grew, so did the attention of the gathering. Even the millionaire's guests, who had been curious about the boy's progress, were astonished at how naturally he captured the hearts of everyone around him. There was a magic in his playing, a quality that made listeners forget where they were or who they were. The music became the center, uniting people through its beauty and honesty. The boy then shifted to a livelier piece, his hands moving faster, yet the flow remained seamless. Children clapped their hands along with the rhythm, some even attempting to move in time with the melody. Laughter and joy blended with the music, creating an atmosphere of pure happiness. The boy's skill was remarkable, but it was his ability to inspire and involve others that made him exceptional. He did not just perform. He shared an experience that left people feeling connected and alive. The millionaire watched, smiling for the first time without reservation. He realized that talent alone was powerful, but when combined with humility, generosity, and a willingness to connect with others, it became transformative. The boy was not just a musician. He was a teacher, a guide, and a source of inspiration. It was a lesson the millionaire would carry with him. True greatness comes not only from skill but from the way one touches the lives of others. After the performance, the boy packed his instrument carefully and approached the children. He spoke softly, answering their questions and encouraging them to pursue their own passions, whatever they might be. His demeanor was gentle but firm, showing that dedication and patience could lead to extraordinary results. The children left with new dreams and a sense of possibility, inspired by what they had seen. As the crowd dispersed, the millionaire came forward and placed a hand gently on the boy's shoulder. "You have a gift that is rare in this world," he said. "Not just for the music, but for how you share it with others. You remind everyone that talent and heart can make a difference, no matter where we come from." The boy nodded, a quiet smile acknowledging the words. He had never sought recognition, but it felt good to know that his efforts could have a positive impact. Word of the boy's talent continued to spread. Neighbors, local musicians, and even educators from nearby schools came to see him perform. Each person left impressed not only by the skill but by the spirit behind it. Stories began to circulate of how a child from humble beginnings could captivate the hearts of the wealthy and the ordinary alike. People began to see that dedication and passion, combined with courage, could overcome obstacles and prejudice. The boy's routine continued, but he remained humble. He practiced diligently, explored new compositions, and shared his music freely. He never sought fame or reward. Instead, he focused on the joy of creating and the satisfaction of touching lives. Even the millionaire noticed this, admiring the boy's ability to remain grounded despite the attention and admiration. One evening, as the sun set over the estate, the boy played a piece that he had been composing for weeks. It was a story in music, capturing moments of struggle, hope, joy, and reflection. The sound filled the estate, echoing through the halls and gardens. The millionaire stood silently, listening to the layers of emotion woven into every note. Guests who had come to witness the boy's progress felt the weight of the music, moved by its honesty and depth. The boy's eyes were closed, and he played not for applause, but for the emotions that music allowed him to express. Each chord reflected his experiences, his dreams, and his understanding of the world. He had grown not only in skill but in emotional awareness, understanding that music could communicate what words often could not. It was a lesson for all who listened, that true art comes from the heart and soul. After the performance, the millionaire approached again, this time with a more thoughtful expression. "You have shown courage, talent, and heart in ways that cannot be measured," he said. "I want to help you explore this gift further, to give you opportunities that were once out of reach. Not because you need them, but because the world needs your music." The boy nodded, grateful for the support and encouragement. This was not charity. It was a partnership, a chance for him to continue growing while remaining true to himself. The boy's influence began to expand beyond the estate. Local music teachers invited him to perform and share his techniques. Children from different neighborhoods came to learn from him, inspired by the story of the boy who had turned mockery into admiration. Even adults reflected on their own prejudices and assumptions, realizing that talent, courage, and authenticity could emerge from the most unexpected places. Throughout all this, the boy remained focused on his craft. He practiced with diligence and care, always seeking to improve and explore new ways to express himself. He understood that recognition and praise were temporary, but the impact of music, when played with sincerity, could last a lifetime. His goal was not to be famous but to touch hearts and inspire others through his passion. The millionaire observed this growth with pride and humility. He had once believed that wealth and influence were the keys to success, but the boy had shown him a different path. True value lay in talent, courage, heart, and the ability to connect with others. He felt honored to witness the boy's journey and to support it in whatever ways he could. One afternoon, as the boy practiced a particularly intricate composition, A small group of children gathered around, listening intently. The melody seemed to tell a story of hope, resilience, and the beauty of dreams. The children watched closely, learning not only from the notes but from the determination and focus that the boy demonstrated. They began to understand that greatness was not simply a result of talent, but of dedication, passion, and heart. As the day came to a close, the boy packed his instrument and looked back at the estate. He had learned and grown in ways he could not have imagined. The applause, admiration, and encouragement had all been meaningful, but the real reward was the music itself, the joy, the challenge, and the connection it created. The millionaire, watching him leave, knew that he had been part of something remarkable. The boy's journey was just beginning, and the impact of his music would continue to ripple outward, inspiring anyone willing to listen and believe. The final part of the boy's journey unfolded quietly yet powerfully. Each day, he grew more confident and skilled, and each day, his music touched more hearts. The lessons he had learned about courage, persistence, and the power of genuine expression became part of who he was. He no longer feared judgment or ridicule because he understood that his music carried his story, and that alone was enough to command respect. One morning, the boy arrived at the estate and found the millionaire waiting for him. The millionaire's expression was serious but kind. "I want to give you a chance to share your music with more people," he said. "Not just here, but beyond the estate, where your talent can inspire many others." The boy listened carefully, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Performing for strangers in new places was daunting, but he knew this was an opportunity to reach more hearts. The first of these new performances took place in a small local hall. People from different neighborhoods gathered, curious to hear the boy who had amazed everyone at the estate. When he stepped onto the stage, he held his instrument with care, adjusting his position and preparing to play. His hands trembled slightly, but only from anticipation, not fear. He had grown used to playing for others, yet each performance carried a new energy, a new challenge. As the first notes echoed through the hall, a hush fell over the audience. The boy played with the same sincerity and passion he always had, but now he also carried a sense of purpose. He was no longer just a child demonstrating talent. He was a messenger through music. Each melody conveyed hope, courage, and resilience. The listeners were captivated, drawn into the story unfolding in sound. The millionaire watched from the front row, silently proud. He had seen talent before, but this boy's music had something unique. It moved people in ways that went beyond admiration. The hall was filled with emotion, and many in the audience wiped away tears or smiled softly, lost in the beauty of the performance. Children looked on with wide eyes, imagining the possibilities of what they too could achieve if they followed their passions. As the boy finished the piece, the audience erupted in applause. The boy bowed modestly, feeling a quiet joy. The applause was not for show. It was recognition of something deeper. It was a reflection of how music could connect people, how a single talent could inspire a room full of strangers. The boy understood this more than anyone, and he smiled inwardly, knowing that his journey was only beginning. After the performance, the millionaire approached the boy once again. "You have done something remarkable today," he said softly. "You have shown courage, passion, and the ability to touch people's hearts. I am honored to support you on this journey." The boy nodded, grateful for the guidance and encouragement, knowing that this partnership was built on respect and understanding rather than expectation or control. In the following weeks, the boy traveled to various locations, performing for schools, local community centers, and small gatherings. Each performance was unique, yet all carried the same sincerity and emotion. The audiences were diverse, yet each person left feeling inspired. The boy's music was not just a performance. It was a gift, a bridge between people, and a source of hope for those who needed it. Word of his talent continued to spread. Newspapers, radio shows, and local storytellers shared the boy's story, emphasizing how he had faced mockery and doubt, yet emerged with courage and determination. People began to look for him, hoping to witness the young musician who had captured hearts with his melodies. The boy remained humble, understanding that fame was fleeting, but the impact of music could last a lifetime. Throughout this journey, the boy never lost sight of why he played. Music was not about recognition or reward. It was about expression and connection. Each note was a reflection of his life, his experiences, and his dreams. He had learned that the true power of art lay in its ability to communicate emotions that words often could not capture. He played with heart, and that heart touched everyone who listened. The millionaire continued to support him, providing opportunities and guidance without imposing control. He understood that true talent flourished best when nurtured with respect and freedom. Together, they discovered that mentorship was about encouragement and trust, not authority or dominance. The boy thrived in this environment, growing more confident and expressive with each performance. As the boy's reputation grew, he began to inspire others to pursue their own passions. Children who had once been shy or uncertain now dared to explore their talents. Adults who had doubted the potential of youth began to reconsider their assumptions. The boy's journey became a symbol of courage, perseverance, and the transformative power of following one's dreams. His music reached beyond notes and melodies. It carried a message of hope and resilience. One afternoon, the boy returned to the estate for a final performance with the millionaire present. He played a composition that told his story, a tale of struggle, doubt, perseverance, and triumph. The notes were filled with emotion, echoing through the halls and gardens, capturing the essence of his journey. The audience listened in awe, feeling every moment of the story come alive through music. Tears were shed, smiles were shared, and hearts were touched. When the final note faded, silence hung in the room before applause erupted. The boy bowed, humble and proud, knowing that he had shared something meaningful. The millionaire stepped forward, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You have accomplished something extraordinary," he said, "not just in skill, but in the way you inspire and connect with others. Your music will continue to touch lives for years to come." The boy nodded quietly, understanding that this was the true reward. Not fame, not wealth, but the ability to make a difference. From that day forward, the boy's life changed in many ways. He gained access to new instruments, training, and opportunities to perform, but he remained grounded. He continued to play with humility, passion, and heart. His story became well known, not because of wealth or status, but because of courage, talent, and authenticity. He had faced ridicule, doubt, and challenges, yet he emerged with his spirit intact and his talent shining brightly. The millionaire, too, learned valuable lessons from the boy. He realized that wealth and power could not replace talent, heart, or the ability to inspire. He understood the importance of mentorship, respect, and encouragement in nurturing potential. Together, they had witnessed something extraordinary. A young boy transforming not only his own life, but the lives of everyone who heard his music. The boy continued to play, creating new melodies and compositions, each one reflecting his journey and growth. He inspired countless others, proving that determination, courage, and heart could overcome any obstacle. His story remained a beacon of hope, reminding everyone that greatness can come from the most unexpected places, and that true talent shines brightest when paired with humility and passion. And so, the boy's music lived on, echoing in hearts and minds far beyond the estate, a lasting testament to the power of courage, perseverance, and the magic of following one's dreams. Every note he played carried a message, that no matter the challenges, with heart and dedication, one could leave an unforgettable mark on the world.